panel discussion on assessing the industries where AI ML has caused a disruption journey of digital transformation. Well, the artificial intelligence is redefining industries by offering personalization, automating processes, and disrupting how we work. In modern times, AI is embraced by every industry from private entities to government. This panel discussion will cover embracing AI in multi-channel retail, how companies are using AI and big data to drive success. We're talking about bridging the e-commerce gap with the help of AI, the future of autonomous aviation, how AI data is creating business efficiency and revolutionizing working practices, how AI and data analytics improves health industry, and also understanding AI's increasing impact in all sectors of focus being automobile, logistics, healthcare, e-commerce, and supply chain. Well, we've got with us our panelists. First up, Winnie, Talosig, Rebancos, the Information Technology Director of Coca-Cola Beverages, Philippines. Winnie has a demonstrated history of working in the information technology and services industry. She has over 12 years of experience in the field of information technology and is also passionate about technology and organizational work related to Coca-Cola and thrives at challenges. We've also got Peter. He's the AI community and data analytics lead, Airbus Germany. Peter has more than 6 years of experience in aeronautics and data science. His current mission involves democratizing the data analytics and AI across 1 lakh plus people, a company with more than 50 plus sites. He aims to build a truly data-driven company and take joy in bringing people together to build better products. Also, we've got with us Joshua Arvin Lath, the Chief Technology Officer, AWS, Machine Learning, CBO, and Insights Philippines. Well, Joshua has extensive knowledge in the field of IT and has been sharing his knowledge in several conferences and events to discuss practical strategies for companies and professionals. He's an AWS machine learning hero and serves as a subject matter expert in machine learning and its engineering. We also have Sean Lam, the head of data science, Sing Health Singapore. Well, Sean is an experienced decision scientist, data science practitioner, overseeing a team of data scientists in the development data science-related infrastructure, technology, policies, and processes. He has spent nearly 20 years in a government research academic and healthcare organization. We also have Alexandre Gonfalonieri, the AI community lead consultant, Philips and DNA Global Analytics France. Alexandre is an AI community lead and project manager in Philips and aims in the development of new strategies related to machine learning and brain-computer interface. Well, he's been working on multiple innovation strategy and ML projects for large company, startups, and consulting firms. This entire panel discussion is going to be moderated by Vidya Nair, Business Development Lead, Influencer, and Speaker, Future Frames India. While Vidya is one of the most versatile business development lead, influencer, and speaker, and vice president marketing at Future Frames Media. Vidya's naturally warm and confident personality makes her the perfect influencer and speaker with the years of experience in improvisation, which has conditioned Vidya to be ready for an eventuality on stage and off. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, we welcome our entire panel who has taken out their valuable time to be with us today. And I would now request Vidya to take forward the entire panel. Thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Vidya.
Thank you, Bhavana. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Vidya.
A very good afternoon to our wonderful panelists and our lovely audience. We've heard a lot about artificial intelligence already, and the beauty of artificial intelligence is that it can reach as far as our mind can imagine. Do you know this is what exactly makes artificial intelligence so amazing? The fact that the human mind can imagine at one time and artificial intelligence makes it happen. So back in 1903, when the Wright brothers achieved their first powered airplane flight, little did they imagine that in this generation, this current era, we would be actually flying airplanes with the help of AI without pilots. So that's the beauty of AI. It's available across different industries, and we have so much improvisation happening with every year that we've all left it to imagination. So thank you to all our lovely panelists for being present here. I would like to start the panel discussion with our lovely Winnie. Winnie is going to be speaking to us about bridging the e-commerce gap with the help of AI. Winnie, if you could give us more inputs about that.
Hi, Vidya. Hi,
Hi.
everyone. Am I coming in clear?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So thank you for inviting me here. I think the disruptions that AI in the e-commerce industry is it's making a huge impact on three things. One is on the customer, and then the other one is on the supply chain of the company or the company who is actually enabling it. And then the last one would be on the technology aspect, which is people, and that's referring to the IT skills. And as far as future customer is concerned, I think AI or machine learning have given us a very futuristic view of what the future customer looks like. Very personalized, demanding of things that that customer thinks that he should have, and everything that his mind can actually comprehend. He thinks that anything now is available. It becomes available readily. So at least in Coca-Cola, we make sure that our platforms cater to these needs to our customers. We make sure that through our data and analytics, we derive insights on how to make our customer loyal to the product, to the company, on how to make the customer eventually spread out its wings without really depending much on Coca-Cola, and how our customers be independent enough to reach out further customers so that the reach of span um, is expanded. And then that's referring to the outside. Inside the company, analytics, data insights are used to harness supply chain improvements. So when we say supply, gone are the days when we start supply chain with raw materials and then you produce and then you make and then you distribute and then you transport. And then the supply chain stops at the moment that the product reaches the customer. Nowadays, the focus of supply chain stops directly at the customer and then understanding what else can it do to further foster dissatisfaction. So it does not leave in satisfaction alone that we are able to deliver to the customer. We should reverse the shift to making sure that what we are delivering is actually satisfying to the customer. So supply chain now realizes its second phase, which is responding to customer needs. So how does it package according to the customer needs? What logistics or transportation, what type of transportation will the customer be happy about? So, and then the third one is the disruption that it's making in the information technology professional. Now that everything is fast paced, everything needs to be there in time and in full, and everyone, especially the customer, will want it at the time that he needs it, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but at the time that he needs it. So as an IT professional, AI, machine learning, analytics is disrupting the way how we think delivery should be. It's challenging agility, and it's making sure that what we know now is not going to be necessarily the one that will bring us to success in the future. So those are the, I think, the three key areas where AI is making a big impact.
Okay, lovely, Winnie. My next question is to Joshua. Joshua, could you help us in understanding AI's increasing impact across all sectors?
Thank you for that. Yeah. So to give a really quick example on that is machine learning and AI. Basically, just think of those topics
Mm-hmm.
as another tool to a professionals or a company's let's say utility belt. So when you have a tool, basically you have different tools for that for those stuff, and think of that tool as solving a problem. So one thing that I'm currently using right now is, for example, Crisp.ai. There are times when, for example, given that all of us are at home and forced to do conferences online. So in the past, I had to go to Thailand, Malaysia, Australia just to join a conference and be a speaker there. But now, given that we are now in the COVID situation, we're forced to do remote work and do most of our work online. So that said, let's say that there's background noise, for example. There's a tool for it, and it utilizes AI and machine learning to remove the background noise. So I'm using it right now, and that alone is already a good example of how machine learning AI helps us improve our daily lives. So that's one. There are a lot of things. The second one is optimization. So the needs of the businesses are still the same. So even if we have new tools, we have the high tech stuff, the quote unquote high tech stuff around now. Basically, the needs of the businesses are still the same. It's just what the company builds. How much is the company? How much has the company invested to build something? How much is being wasted, and so on. So basically, some of the problems that machine learning AI can help us is through optimization, like what was mentioned earlier. So let's say that in e-commerce, for example, there's the front end part, and then there's the back end part. Front end, let's say that's the operational side of things, and then the back end may include, let's say, the background operations and the tech teams resources. All of those things things need to be paid by the boss, right? So if you have an IT infrastructure set up, of course you need to worry about over resourcing, or let's say having too much capacity when there's no traffic. So let's say that when you're trying to get a lot of customers in e-commerce, for example, you have no idea when there's going to be a surge of customers trying to purchase in your site. So what has helped us, especially me, has been trying to work on those things for the past 5 to 10 years. Initially, we just had a really large computer. It's called a server, and then let's say that it can only deal with 100 people. Yeah, and then if you had 200 people, you will be forced to purchase or reserve another computer or another server. Right now, given that there's predictive analytics helping us, it can auto scale, and you can technically predict and find the patterns on what will probably happen next week. And the more advanced use cases there is trying to predict what would happen if there's some marketing stuff going on, and you would be more prepared because you can use the data in the past. So that's through the use of machine learning and predictive algorithms. And then the third one would be fraud detection, trying to detect, let's say, anomalous intent or actions. So let's say even the simple login form. All websites right now have a login form. If you are not able to automatically block malicious attempts, then you would have a lot of problem with dealing with hackers or crackers trying to break into your site. But if you have something that automatically detects bad behavior, that would definitely help you. Let's say in the fintech industry, credit scoring. Right now, let's say that you have a really large data set. You just process it with a decision tree learning algorithm. Then out of nowhere, you have this decision tree where you can just you'll know if a customer or if a user is high risk or low risk. Meaning that if that person is high risk, then you will probably not accept that customer, right? So those are probably 4 or 5 examples that I can give. But right now, even when people are using their mobile phones or their computers, they're technically using AI and machine learning tools without knowing it. Yeah. So yeah, those are some examples I can give. Back to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Joshua. Next, we have Peter, and Peter is going to explain the future of autonomous aviation. So, can we have Peter online?
Sure. Hi. Good morning, everybody from my city in Europe, Hamburg based.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be on this panel. So future of autonomous flight, I think, is really a far way out. It's not like we're there yet, and it's not going to be there in the next few years. We have to see if that's socially acceptable at all. But I think a lot of companies, including ours, are obviously working towards autonomous flight. So let me give you one example of something we did last year. There's a project called ATOL, for example, where we have autonomous taxi, takeoff, and landing, where we try to do the full end-to-end flight automated. So there was a whole bunch of computer vision involved to do the on-ground taxiing and takeoff and landing procedures without a pilot involved. Obviously, there are still pilots involved, but you can see this direction going forward. But always there's going to be a pilot in the center. So we kind of try to empower the pilots for more strategic decision making and kind of focus less on the operational stuff to turn left or right now, but rather what you want to do in case of a failure. So I mean,
quite similar to the example I gave when I started off with the panel discussion about how Wright brothers wouldn't have imagined that, we would be one day flying planes without a pilot. But of course, we need artificial intelligence to get started.
Very much so. I think we will get there in a few years, but there's a whole bunch of research challenges still stopping us from doing so. But talking about disruption, I think there's a whole other dimension we can focus on, which we're doing already, is just to look at the data this aircraft is generating. I mean, in the end, it's a flying computer, right? We have tons and tons of sensors which are logging all the information every flight. So what we're doing now is taking all this data and putting it into the cloud after every flight. I believe we have some 100 airlines signed up onto a project called Skywise by now, where we kind of see every night, here's what happened. And this, the first time ever, gives us the possibility now to see, all right, this is actually what's happening on our aircraft. What's happening, I don't know, what's with the latest coffee machine version, for example? Should we upgrade the software or not, right? Same for the airlines. You can benchmark yourself with other airlines. Is your turnaround time longer than the other ones? If so, maybe you should work on your turnaround kind of strategy. So there's a whole bunch of enablers just having this data available, and then from there, the disruption will start. And I mean, the Skywise project is really kind of facing the outside of our customers. When we look on the inside of Airbus, there's a whole bunch of AI machine learning projects going on where we try to increase the internal efficiency. And very much like you said, we really believe AI will be ubiquitous. We believe it will be in every team, in every site, in every country. There will be some AI challenge, some AI related project in the future. So think of human resources. Maybe you want to support the recruitment process. Think of procurement. Maybe you want to, I don't know, do anomaly detection in financial transactions. Maybe you want to organize your spare parts. So we'll be all over the place. And for us as a big company to get there, we really need to kind of bring this out. So we can't have one central team. We have like a whole bunch of teams, and to get there, we also train all of our colleagues. So we have a huge upskilling campaign. I think we finished to train the 1,000th employee now to kind of really have those skills to say, all right, you used to be a human resources person. Now you're kind of a part-time data scientist at least. And then of course, having a central team to support, bring those projects really forward. So we strongly believe the technology, AI technology, like Joshua said already, is ready. So we don't need to reinvent all of that stuff. The challenge today is the application. So these building blocks are there. What do we want to do with those? Like, do we do this to kind of check the website login, or kind of, again, in which areas do we apply? And I see them all over the place. There's so much to do. So pretty much what you need to do is upskill your colleagues. You need to have people understanding this, at least being a translator, to be able from, all right, this is my business problem, translate this into a data speak, to explain to data scientists what is the thing that I want to do here to kind of really disrupt. And to do so, you need to de-skill the problem, meaning you need to have platforms available in your company. It's like, all right, how can you easily make this accessible? How can like this, let's call them citizen data scientists in your company now do this? You don't have to be the trained AI expert, rather still think of this HR person doing a little bit of data science now. How is the platform? Is the platform easy enough accessible for this person to kind of work on the problems themselves? At least make them able to do like a simple BI dashboard, better something more advanced. So you need to put platforms in place for that. And I think for us, really a key strategy we want to see is we want to empower our people inside as well as outside with the pilots already. We want to empower them and not replace them. So it's really not about saying, all right, we want to replace the whole team, but rather give this whole team then the possibility to do the job better than before. Back the information or back them with data so they can make data-driven decision making. To have better strategic decision and then have more time to focus on the bigger topics. So tons and tons of projects. I can give you a bunch more examples, but pretty much we believe it will be in every team inside and outside AI will affect.
So we will cover that in the next question. So moving on to our next panelist, we have Alexandre. Alexandre, the question for you is, can you help us understand AI's impact on building a data-driven strategy?
Yeah, sure. So basically,
Hi,
my work.
Alexandre.
Yeah. So did you say something? Sorry, I interrupted you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry. Yeah. Hi. I'm the other European. So I'm in France. So what I can say is that AI is like extremely important for brands, all of them. And the key aspect when it comes to my job is trying to figure out how AI can help brands better understand their customers. So obviously, the more information you have on your customer, the better you can, the better products you can put on the market. And we are all competing like on the same market segments, and obviously we want to have like the most information possible to have the most relevant offer to for the customer. So I've been working a lot on like computer vision. Like my job is trying to understand like is this advertisement relevant to that very specific someone or not? How do people react to this advertisement? What is the average age of the people walking in the specific street? And is this advertisement like relevant in this location? So that's the first aspect. So it's a great way for brands to understand if they are being relevant or not, if they are spending their money wisely or not. When it comes to marketing, most of the time, marketing professionals are being challenged about how they spend the company's money. And we often lack the data to prove that what we did was useful. But thanks to AI, the marketing function can have like new new elements to convince the management to invest. The other aspect is that when you use computer vision, you can determine like what are your customers doing in your shop. This is also extremely useful. For instance, if you go to a store and you pick up this product or another one, we want to know like, did you purchase it or not? Based on like who you are, we want to know like what product did you pick, for how long did you keep it with you, and so on. And thanks to this information, we can like immediately adjust, for instance, the price in the store, or like we know in advance that at 3 o'clock, most of the people who are in the store are like women between 15 to 25 years old. And thanks to this information, we can like immediately adjust everything we have in the store. We can adjust like the communication, the price. We can adjust like how the staff should behave and so on. So AI helps us being always relevant. That's the key word. AI means being relevant. We live in a world in which like the customer is always like bombarded with information, and most of the time you receive information that you don't care about, because this information is not personalized. And the future will require companies to be more and more personalized in the way they communicate. So that's how AI helps us. Now, I can also talk about like new technologies that I'm working on. I see like we have a lot of AI professionals, so all of you are very knowledgeable when it comes to data privacy, data security. So we are working a lot on new approach, for instance, like federated learning. Federated learning it's a totally new concept. It's like saying, hey, I can collaborate with my main competitor on building my next AI model. Like we both have the data, and you need your competitor's data. you know, because in AI, the more data you have, the better it will be, like the more accuracy you will have. And but at the same time, when you go to a company and say, hey, you're going to have to share your data with your competitor, they will say to you, are you nuts? Of course I'm not going to share my data. It is like the most important thing I can have. But with federated learning and something called homomorphic encryption, you can guarantee um, some data privacy. So you can train your AI models without having the possibility to check by yourself, like the data that you are using. I mean, you have a vague description about it, but you cannot go in details about it. That changes a lot. So that's the first thing. That's one of the things I'm working about. And obviously, when you hear AI, you can also hear automation behind it. We all need to automate. Like, if we want to improve our business models, if we want to improve our return on investment, we have to automate. And AI enables us to automate many things in our process. So it can be like small stuff, like just trying to automate the way you send emails, the way you answer to emails, and that's what you already have with Gmail. Or it could be automating the way you answer to your customers in order to gain time. So I've been working on all of this. And lastly, the last technology that we are covering is called brain-computer interface. To put it simply, brain-computer interface is using your brain as a way to interact with devices. Like, you don't need anything at all. Like, if you go on WhatsApp, obviously you need your phone, but in the future you won't need your phone anymore. You will just need your brain. Well, lucky for you, you always have your brain on you. So that's a great way of seeing it. So tomorrow, people will no longer need smartphones. They will no longer need laptops, because everything will already be on their brain. And the next battle will be like, how do you capture something called brain data? You know, all of us are competing for data, but actually we are competing for data that will disappear in the next 5-10 years, when brain-computer interface will become mainstream. So yeah, I'm working on all these exciting technologies. And to answer your question, yeah, retail companies need AI. They desperately need AI, and if they don't embrace it, like right now, like today, they're gonna be gone by like the next 2 years, because the competition is like crazy. If you don't innovate right now, you're already too late.
Yes, with the increase in demand, with the growing population and the increase in
Yeah.
demand, I think it's very important that we have AI in retail, and that we have it at the earliest. So moving on to our panelists, we have a total of 3 questions for all of you. Now we're moving on to the second set of questions. So we will move to Sean. Sean.
Hi, yeah. Thanks for inviting me for
Hi,
this
Sean.
panel session.
Welcome to the AI show. I really love your background. It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, the question for you is, Sean, can you help us reimagine the organization with AI at its core?
Okay, so a bit about my background. I am a bit different from the commercial side of the industries that that are looking at AI to support the improvement of profitability, revenue, market share, and so forth. In fact, I come from the public healthcare sector. I'm from Singapore. I'm the data science lead for the SingHealth cluster, which is the largest public healthcare cluster in Singapore. Under our organization, that we have 4 hospitals, and one of the oldest and largest hospital is Singapore General Hospital. So essentially, what we hope to achieve with new technologies like artificial intelligence is really how to improve the care for our population at large. And to that extent, right, we are kind of like we hope to avoid getting more customers as opposed to in the industries or in the commercial world, you hope to get more customers, more revenue. We hope that our customers will stay healthy and stay in the community and don't come to us if ever possible. So in that sense, we are looking at artificial intelligence as an enabler, the key enabler. The reason is because Singapore is facing the aging population. I think a lot of countries are facing aging populations. And that means that our care ratio for our elderly is going to drop dramatically. In 2030, it's going to be like 1 in 5 Singaporeans will be considered elderly. And that means that the ratio of young population able to care for the old is going to drop, and there's going to be huge strain on our healthcare system. And the truth is that health services has been improving leaps and bounds over the years, and in Singapore, I think we are one of the highest or longest life expectancy in the world. I think we are probably behind Sweden, but essentially we are expected to live, expectation is 83 years old. So with an elderly population and folks are quote unquote not dying, and so which means that we will have to continue to provide the care that is necessary to keep the population healthy. And our workforce, all of you know that it is shrinking, which means that technology like artificial intelligence is going to help us dramatically. And how is it going to help us? So that's the key question. We envision it across 4 pillars, not just in terms of patient outcomes, patient care, improvement of the care outcomes for patients, but also our provider as well, because we are a very service-oriented industry, very human-centric, meaning the provider and the patients, they are always in very close contact with each other. That's where value is derived. So the provider themselves has to be supported by these technologies to be able to deliver care. And the third pillar is essentially sustainability of care, because we don't have infinite budget to be able to deliver care. So cost effectiveness, the effectiveness of new technology that's being brought in is extremely important. And the fourth pillar ultimately is our population health, so for the entire population. So in order to do this, to us, I think there's nothing artificial about AI. It's really how to augment our care providers to deliver care, how to augment the intelligence of our patients to take care of themselves even before coming to the hospital or need care. So wearables, IoT, and all those to monitor their own health, to take care that they they're not diabetic, hypertension, and high cholesterol. These are the 3H that we are very concerned about. So the cost, the burden of care for these patients is going to be huge if they were to come to tertiary care, which is the hospital. So we are trying to prevent that, and that the patient themselves has to be augmented with intelligence, not the patients. Hopefully they don't turn the patient, but the population at large will have to have the intelligence in their hand to take care of themselves. And when the worst happens, our hospitals will have to be supported by the technologies. And nothing artificial that I mentioned, it has to be augmented. So the idea is that currently you have a largest proportion of primary care doctors, which means they did not go through specialist training, residency programs, and so forth to be an oncologist, to be a urologist, to be a specialist in their right. But we envision that the ability to have this technology in their hands, say for example, if looking at scans, CT scans, MRIs, X-rays or so, just a primary care doctor will be able to do some of the work that currently would require, say, an oncologist to be able to decipher whether this has a high risk of being a malignant tumor. And some of this is, we may not even need, say, a radiologist to read a CT scan or to read X-ray to tell you that this is highly likely not going to be a COVID-19 patient, for example, is probably other respiratory diseases. You need a certain level of training. If you can bring down that level of training that's required, we're going to have specialists in all our doctors. So those are the ideas of being able to augment that intelligence, being able to identify high-risk patients very early on, prevent them from deteriorating. The last part is actually our thoughts in terms of artificial intelligence application. It has to be backed by evidence and science. That's why I lead the data science initiative rather than the artificial intelligence initiative. Reason is because science and evidence always work together in Western medicine. Not I think a lot of other medicine, even traditional Chinese medicine, they are also viewing evidence data as extremely important to prove efficacy of certain care. So if you were to deploy an artificial or augmented intelligence kind of system to help to read MRI scans, or for the matter, we have developed the ability to use artificial intelligence to look at glaucoma eye scan images to identify the risk of glaucoma patients turning back. So glaucoma is a disease that's very horrible. It will lead to blindness, and it will lead to blindness very quickly if not taken care of. So in the past, technicians has to spend hours reading those images, and technician has to be trained. So with the AI, it actually helped them to eliminate the need for this the readers essentially. So these are some of the advances that could come online, and we are not going to have a robot talking to you like Max, Baymax kind of thing. Certainly because it is always a human-centric endeavor in healthcare. The human touch has always to be there. So I don't foresee a time when we have a Baymax running around maybe in my generation. So that's the thinking that we have behind AI, but really is of augmented intelligence, and the outcome is the key concern for us. Yep. So that is the thought of how AI could help in healthcare.
Thank you, Sean. Moving on to our second round of questions, I would like to start with Winnie again. Winnie, could you tell us on how companies are using AI and big data to drive success? What is Coca-Cola doing for it?
Yeah, at least, okay, probably let me start with a view of what we were before and where we are now. No? So in the past, it takes us additional companies like Nielsen and other competitive data to actually get hold of competitor indicators. And of course, those are valuable data because we cannot really get competitor data out that easily. But additional insights coming from our customer platforms have increased our leverage on multiple dimensions of what a customer is. So if in the past we were so dependent on how we see our competitors' view of us, now we also see ourselves view of how we are in the entire national. So in the Philippines, we have like 7,100 islands, and each of these islands would have our own competitive pricing. And in the past, we would cater our pricing, or we would normally suit our pricing depending on the cost of living, or depending on the geography, or depending on the people who live in that area. Nowadays, we are able to add more information about how many customers do we have there, how many are non-carbonated drinks customers, how many of our customers are teens, how many are buying at lunch, how many are buying for dinner, how many are buying for occasions, how many are specific occasions, which brand would actually be more pleasing to kids, or which brand or which type of drinks would be more pleasing to mothers who actually do the groceries. So there are a lot of ideas that come out with full insights and capabilities. And in the past as well, because we depend so much of the machinery that's outside when it comes to data and analytics. Now that we have our own, we are able to see everything just on our mobile. So it equips not just the CEO, but up to the lowest level of our organization, which happens to be our pre-seller, our foot on the ground. So when they go to the specific market, or when they go to our specific customer, they are equipped with the right conversations, with the right kind or the right type of details that they would be able to offer even our customers and our consumers, so that they make a better deal. So we have not just democratized the use of data, we have also empowered our pre-sellers, our sales associates and sales representatives to make decisions of their own. And that is coupled with, of course, with governance and with controls coming from the head office, but at the same time coupled with a sense of personalization for what the customers want.
All right. Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you.
It really helps us understand the kind of the needs of the customer and helps us serve them better from with the generations, the the importance of understanding what the customer wants, the importance of understanding how their tastes and preferences are changing with time. It's very important for any business to understand that and stay competitive in the market. And I'm sure AI and big data will definitely help us in improvising and making that experience better for the customers with all the information that we are getting in.
Yeah, and to add on that video, I think there is also a component wherein we just don't know what the customer wants. Okay,
Correct.
so because of data, it allows us now to do experimentations and allows us to think of what will work and what will not work. So it's giving us more flexibility and ability to respond as well.
And spoil them for choice. Okay, thank you, Winnie. Moving on to the next question. We have Joshua. Joshua, can you help us understand how AI data is creating business efficiency and revolutionizing working practices?
Yes, thank you for that. Actually, it has probably a lot of companies right now are experiencing it as well. So to provide some context, this past 5 to 10 years, it has been really good to AI and machine learning in the sense that the hype actually helped us build more tools and frameworks around machine learning, for example. So for example, right now there's TensorFlow, Apache MXNet, PyTorch, and different other tools to help us easily include this machine learning inference endpoints and easily work with, let's say, the existing application systems to do some cool automated stuff. So one thing that I can probably share is let's say that there's image recognition. That alone is allowing a lot of companies around the world to shift towards having a completely online processing of a form or let's say an application. So in the past, you may end up having to go to a certain establishment, check if you are really the person trying to apply, and then you have your documents. But right now, given that a lot of things are going online, you can actually do the verification online. So you take a selfie, you upload your document, let's say your passport, and then the machine learning algorithm would detect if it's the same person. So it will work even if you have a twin, and the algorithm will tell you that it's not the same person. So that alone, with that included in your process, that would definitely save a lot of time and money and personnel, so that your people working on that can be assigned to do something else, or basically use that to improve the results of the processing. So that's one. Making a lot of things go online. The second one would be simple predictions. So in the past, usually these things are handled by statisticians, data scientists. But right now, given that there are a lot more, let's say, developers or even young professionals trying to learn machine learning and AI, they probably know the basics of linear regression, logistic regression, what classification does, what can you do with a really small data set. Your data doesn't have to be big in order for you to do machine learning. Even with 20 records, you can easily check if there's some correlation with two columns. You can perform linear regression. You can represent a data set with a line or a curved line. You can do some classification tasks. And that actually makes things more interesting in different aspects, especially on the operation end of things. Because you can automatically predict, for example, if, let's say that you have a warehouse. And then here are your numbers for the past couple of days. You probably will have an idea if your warehouse would be full in a couple of days. Yeah. So let's say that this is the behavior of how the stocks are going in your company. You'll probably know that 5 days from now, we won't have any more storage for this certain set of products. Also, a third example would be for the business efficiency and revolutionizing working practices. You just need to make sure that you tie that with your KPIs. So of course, removing machine learning first, just thinking about the how businesses work in general. You have your business targets, and then you have your data points, quote unquote data points, and you try to look for patterns. And basically, it will help you with recruitment. For example, you want to check if in a certain position, you want to know what's the average salary or what's the expected salary of those new recruits. So let's say that based on the data, after all the interviews that you've done, or after getting some data from a system, you might infer that the salary might be proportional to the age or the number of years of experience of a person. So that alone would definitely help you optimize the way you interview people. So let's say that, oh, this person has 4 years of experience as a manager. This is probably that person's expected salary. And if that person's salary does not fit your budget, or if it's too expensive for your company, then you're going to be able to save a lot of time, and you might end up not interviewing that person in the first place. So even with just receiving the CV or the resume, you can automatically predict a lot of stuff, especially if that person is fit in your company. So that would definitely help the HR side of things. Last example I could share would be on the working practices end. Just think of managing a company as like a game where you can try all sorts of strategies to make your company better. So like I said, it all boils down to the final set of metrics and removing the vanity metrics aside. But basically, you can use different machine learning algorithms and a lot of automated stuff to improve the workflows. A lot of companies right now, especially into 2020 now, compared in the past where cloud computing is pretty new. So for example, in the Philippines, there were years where a lot of people have no idea about cloud computing. Now, in 2020, I'm pretty sure that 90% probably have at least thought about migrating their workloads in the cloud. Now, a lot of people are thinking about how to use machine learning and AI in their companies. AI and machine learning can help you automate a lot of things. And with automation alone, no matter what we're trying to automate, let's say text summarization, let's say I want to add a subtitle while I'm talking. Let's say that I'm speaking and then there's a subtitle, and then it automatically gets saved in a document and there's minutes of the meeting right away. The automation alone could help you save a lot of time and save a lot of money. Because when we hire people, we pay them whether they're working or not, right? So when you automate a lot of things, instead of you doing the repetitive manual work, if there's an automated tool for it, and it's not as expensive as that person's time or a group of people's time, then you can basically save a lot of money because a lot of things can be automated right away. So an example would be, let's say, a customer service platform where the tagging of the request or the tagging is automatic. So instead of having someone manually processing all of those 1,000 customer complaints and classifying them as urgent or not urgent, or classifying this as a lost product, maybe your customer service application will have automated classification of the request. If you want to compute if you have a lot of comments in your Facebook post, for example, and you extracted that, let's say you want to evaluate if a certain marketing campaign is successful or not, maybe you can associate the text in those comments and associate that with a certain rating. So that alone, if there's some automated algorithm, and probably there is, if there's an automated algorithm to help you convert that into a score instead of manually trying to map it to, let's say, 3 stars, 4 stars, and checking if people are happy or not, then an algorithm would definitely convert a 10-hour job to a 1-hour task because it's automated already.
That's what I've understood. I mean, to add on to that, Joshua, in short, it just simplifies the entire process, and also people from any part of the world can, access the data in the comfort of their homes, and produce better results, produce results faster, is what you're saying. That itself is creating a revolution. Like you mentioned earlier, people in Philippines, didn't have this kind of technology earlier, but now with the help of cloud computing and AI technology, we are creating a revolution. So thank you for that. Now, thank you, Joshua. Moving on to the next question, we have Peter. Peter, the question for you is, how do we digitally transform everyone in a huge enterprise?
Oh, that's a good question. And we started off with a central team in Airbus to kind of start a few key lighthouse projects. I think this is a good way to start your digital transformation. But we quite quickly saw this doesn't really scale, right? To give you a background, our company, we have 100,000 plus colleagues across a whole bunch of countries and sites. So in the end, people came to us and asked us, so what is your AI strategy for Wings? And we're like, all right, let us think about it. But in the end, the central team has to learn pretty much everything that your company is doing. So kind of we opted for the decentralized model, and we turned this whole thing around to say, all right, we have awesome wing engineers. Why don't we teach those guys how to do data science, AI, how to kind of build their own models and empower them to build their own strategy. So the way we're doing it is really to say we aim to educate 2% of the full population of employees that we have to a practitioner level in data science. To say 2% of our population needs to be able to do this by themselves, open a Jupyter notebook, open the tools that we provide them to kind of build their models, do their things. And then, of course, if you go into production, you need still a central support team or multiple central support teams to make real products out of this, to kind of put it into kind of an end-to-end management system. And the way we're doing about it is we're just using massive online courses like, the ones Udacity, Coursera, all of those guys. So to really make it scalable. So we kind of batch our colleagues into classes. So we have, I think next month's kicking off another class. So we have the class of September 2020 then. Say, all right, you 50 people, you are in this class now. Why don't you together form a cohort, start working on Udacity? If you have any questions, come back to us, help each other. And then they all have to do a final project to kind of ease them from, all right, this is theory on an online website to, all right, this is the corporate ecosystem with proxy servers and authentication and all that kind of stuff that you have to do. And that seems to be really, really successful. And I really want to highlight, really don't think this only, the corporate teams need to do this, really think of everybody needs to do this. We have a whole bunch of blue collars, people who are assembling our aircraft, also doing these training courses, and they come up with amazing ideas. And the closer you go to production, the easier it is to find the business case sometimes, because just like if you don't stop the assembly line, you save millions already sometimes.
So what I've understood is you are empowering them by educating them. I'm also curious to know what is their response to this whole thing, this whole process of learning again, classroom learning, or what has their experience been like? What have they shared with you?
So we ask for volunteers pretty much. It's not like we force people to become a data scientist. It's more like, hey, here's this training offering. Is anybody interested? And thereby, I would say most of the guys that sign up for the training are really, really motivated. It's really, you see really the glowing in their eyes. It's like, wow, no, I can do my job a lot better and faster than before. And then they come with questions, how can I put this into like a production system? And you help them. And then you really empower the people to be proud of the work that they're doing and then do it faster and better than before. So we really believe we have good people already in the company. We just want to kind of bring them to the next step to make them faster and more skilled workers.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Now, moving on to the next question, we have a question for Alexandre. You recently spoke about federated learning in an article. What's your opinion on distributed model training or federated learning through the sharing of data? Next question is for Alexandre.
Yeah, it's a good question because.
Do you want me to repeat it to you?
No, it's fine. I get it. Yeah, I think when you hear something related to federated learning, and I think it's pretty much the same with every possible new algorithm or approach in AI, you have to think about the business model behind it, because AI in itself will not make you earn money. It's all about the business model behind it. We have a brand new way to use data. But how is this new way going to help us make money or automate something or whatever? So AI is not an end in itself. It's a way to reach a goal. You know, if someone tells you like, hey, I have an AI strategy, somehow it doesn't mean anything if you don't put a business objective behind it. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. But yeah, federated learning is great because, like, let me give you an example. So Peter works for Airbus, right? So what if tomorrow I say to Peter, hey, why don't you share some of your data with Boeing, for instance? You know, like let's say you need data about how the wing will react to a specific type of, I don't know, atmosphere level, or like pressure on the flaps, things like that. And obviously, maybe you cannot do like all the flights you need, or maybe your simulator is limited. So why don't you like use the data from Boeing? Obviously, they have different planes, but maybe like the core technology remains the same, you know? So Peter might, sorry, Peter, for using you as an example. Correct me if I'm wrong, okay?
Sure.
I can use Coca-Cola, Winnie, by the way, no problem. But I'm just trying to involve everyone and make it more conceptual. So, so what if you use your competitors' data, and why don't you help each other, you know? And obviously, the end result will only belong to you, okay? So it's not like you're gonna have to share what you created with your competitor. No, this is not the goal. The goal with federated learning is that you have a common pool of data, okay? And you use that pool to build something on your own. But the data was put, like, it's the data from the two companies. So that's the first aspect. So you can use your competitor's data to build something you need, and like your competitor can do the same. That's the deal. The other way around is to build an entire new business model next to it. For instance, I can say to a company, hey, you have this data, you are not using it, okay? So it's literally money that you are not um, earning, you know, because most of the data can actually become a revenue stream. It depends on finding the right company to sell it to. So by using federated learning, I can use like the data from this hospital, the data from this other hospital, and so on, and bring all of this together. And if everyone's agreed, of course, it has to be, because we are manipulating data, we need the agreement of a lot of people. And obviously when we're talking about medical stuff, you know, you need a lot of agreements. But if we bring all this data together, can we actually sell it to the big pharma groups? If we make a new revenue stream for hospitals,
Correct.
you know? And actually, what if tomorrow you go to an hospital and you say like before agreeing to like seeing a doctor, what if the hospital tells you, actually you won't have to pay anything if you agree that we sell your data to a big pharma group so that they can do their research on you, on your data, sorry. Well, all of a sudden it becomes something different. Instead of you being someone that will have to pay, you become someone that will receive money from the data that you actually own. So you see, it's an entire way of seeing business from another perspective.
Correct.
So yeah, so when you hear about federated learning, you should think about like, one, can I use my competitors' data? If yes, what can I build thanks to it? Because most of us right now, we are working on projects, but I can assure you that almost everyone here will tell you that, hey, I like data to do this and this. I don't have enough data. This is like the number one thing people will tell you when they work in AI. I don't have enough data. Because if you're working on big projects, most of the time, you have an amazing idea, but you realize that in reality, you don't have you don't have what you need to do it. So obviously you will hear some people saying, hey, you can use synthetic data, you can use data augmentation and so on, but it's not always a solution. Sometimes you need like real data.
Correct. So
And
that's what you are working on.
yes.
I'm building the real data. Okay, thank you. Next, we have the next question for lovely Winnie. The question to you is, how is AI a game changer in the race to higher return on investment and better customer experience for Coca-Cola?
Okay, probably I will share the most recent, which is relating to this pandemic, you know. So when
Okay.
we would have probably the longest lockdown in the whole of Southeast Asia, and sadly that until now we have a rising number of positive cases. But despite of that, I think data has been at the foreground of how we are able to still manage delivery to our customers and make sure that Coca-Cola is still present in every household. At the beginning of last year, we defined our mission to refresh every Filipino home and to make sure that it's a daily process that we do, and we do it happily. So we look at data in all aspects, whether it's employee data from within, wherein we look at the sentiments, the climate, and the engagement score of our employees. We also look at competitors' data because Nielsen and other third-party sources would be there. We also look at how we compete against other bottlers in not just in Asia, not just in Southeast Asia, but in the whole world. And just recently, we were awarded as the #1 bottler in the world. So how did we actually use data? No? We we the most important thing that we did is on revenue growth management. We took hold of all occasions wherein our specific SKUs are actually being leveraged, or at least would have the highest numbers. We would have ideas on where we put in what type of store, whether it's the smallest sari-sari store or mom and pops, if you'd call it in the other countries. But we would be able to identify what specific SKU goes to a specific market. And in all of our investments in technology in the company are all based on where are we doing the least, where are we doing the best, and where do we need help. And if we do not have enough data to actually get into the level of detail, then it's already a sign for us that we would need to curate data out of that specific business. And it turns out to be a use case in the future. So I think the maturity in terms of consumption of data is still a journey, an ongoing journey for us. We are not yet there. I'm not going to boast that we are already there and we know already everything that's happening outside, but it's still a progress or a journey for us. I think as an FMCG company, what people lack most would be the F if in FMCG, which means fast. So while we do a lot of things faster, we are not that fast in consuming data and in trying to understand and creating insights out of that. So in order for us to make sure that the return of investments, all that we do actually leverage or makes up for everything that we do, we make sure that we empower, or not just empower, but also train people from within. So we have plans for data scientists and insights resources to actually go further into this realm, because data would already be there. Technology is just near, and you can just pick a hand and just select from which. But if you don't have the resources to actually analyze, if you don't have the capability to actually get into the insights, then you will not be able to harness the return on these investments.
Investment. That was indeed a very detailed explanation. Thank you, Winnie. Now, before I would like to move on to the closing remarks. Sean, if you would like to give us your final remarks.
Yeah, I think from a healthcare human-centric service process perspective, uh, we agree that there's a lot of reports that says it's going to be a game changer, and it's indeed going to be a game changer. But how it's going to be changed, I think all of us play a very important role in terms of being able to drive real health into the population, into the people we see around. And it cannot be and should not be a technology-driven endeavor. And there's a vast variety of stakeholders that's involved. Just like in caring for patients, the whole family is there. Really, they are the stakeholders, and around them, the society, the people, it takes the people around to actually deliver better care. And I won't see an autonomous driver in the driving seat in terms of providing care. So we have to take a realistic look at how the technology will be able to impact health in general. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean, and thank you to all our wonderful panelists. We had a very informative session. We are now open for questions. Let me check if we have any questions from our audience. Okay, we don't have any questions from our audience yet. So this brings us to the end of the panel discussion. Thank you, Winnie. Thank you, Joshua. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Alexandra. And thank you, Sean, for this wonderful session. And hope to see you all again for future sessions. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.